Here we see a summary of various evolutionary processes focusing particularly on mutation and selection. Mutation puts genetic variation into populations. This genetic variation, the resulting genotypes, can reproduce and are subject to natural selection. Natural selection has the result of increasing the fitness of populations. It has the result in making sure that populations in fact adapt to their environment, or alternatively potentially they can go extinct. You can increase this, if this is as we see in a clonal population, you can increase the complexity of the situation by introducing sexual processes. In sexual processes, you can have mutations that occur in more than one individual finding their way into the same genome, and then those genomes are potentially can reproduce and are subject to natural selection. If we limit things to just typical sexual reproduction processes, we're talking about intraspecific sexual processes. By contrast, there's horizontal gene transfer. In horizontal gene transfer, again, you have alleles that are generated in separate individuals, but the separate individuals actually, in this case, represent separate species. And so what you have is movement of alleles from one species into another species. This is interspecific sex. Then you have the potential for reproduction. This altogether can be described as introgression, which is low-level movement of alleles between populations. And then the resulting individuals are subject to natural selection. In bacteria, this step of horizontal gene transfer, not just between species, but also within species and even within strains, it occurs via processes known as transformation, transduction, as well as conjugation. Down here we have actually a variation on the theme seen in the third process here, which is the acquisition of endosymbionts. Now with endosymbiosis, you have again two different species. Their genetic material is coming together within a single individual, although in this case the two species remain more or less intact with more or less separate genomes and chromosomes. Nevertheless, over time, over evolutionary time, there can be a migration of genetic material from the endosymbiont into the genome of the larger host cell. Again, you have reproduction, whether you've had that migration of genetic material or not. It's a coordinated reproduction between the endosymbiont and the host organism, and together the endosymbiont and the host organism are subject to natural selection.